Anne Arundel County has partnered with the Center for Transformation, and there are several other organizations that are partnered with the health department in this county, and we're health ambassadors. So I'm one of the health ambassadors. Karis, this young lady right here, is one of our health ambassadors here at the Center of Transformation, and Talea, standing right there, is our lead ambassador. So I'll make this quick, I'll make this brief. Next slide, please. There should be one before that. Maybe not? Okay, it's the disclaimer. I'll just say it. I'm not a professional. I do not have a PhD. I don't have a master's degree in psychology. I'm just sharing information. That's basically what the disclaimer says. Moving on. Okay, so we're going to go over 3 things today. What is mental health? Why is mental health important? And the 8 dimensions of wellness. And if you were listening to Apostle Shanklin, he mentioned what I'm going to talk about today. Mental health is more than what I think we assume it is or know about. So we're going to go over those things. What is mental health? We all have mental health, and it's just as important as our physical health. Mental health is not just about our mental illness or mental disorder. So I think that's a stigma that's associated with mental health. Think about mental health as being on a continuum rather than either being mentally ill or mentally well. We are all somewhere on the continuum and move along the continuum based on factors like genetic makeup, life events, and everyday stressors. All right, next slide. All right, so the 8 dimensions of wellness. This is what I want you guys, when you leave today, and Apostle gave us an assignment to share. These are the things I want you to focus on. There are 8 dimensions of wellness. So wellness is not the absence of disease, illness, or stress, but the presence of your optimal physical and behavioral health, purpose in life, active involvement in satisfying work and play, joyful relationships, and happiness. So think about wellness when it comes to mental health. All right, next slide. Okay, it's a lot up here, but I'm going to go through it real quick. I'm going to identify the 8 dimensions of wellness. You have emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, occupational, and social. So typically when you think of mental health, I typically think of emotional. But again, there's several more aspects of that. So there's 2 that are highlighted under each dimension, and I'm going to focus on the ones that I think are important. Emotional, be aware of your feelings. Seek support with upsetting emotions. My saying is, go sit on somebody's couch. All right, spiritual. Discover your most important values, principles, and beliefs. And this is something that I have learned here at the Center of Transformation. Find a community whose spiritual outlook you share. So be a part of a community. Intellectual. Find a book or book series that interest you. Befriend people who stimulate your mind. I love that one. Physical. Make healthy food choices. Don't use today as an example. We're going to enjoy ourselves today. So I know the food may be the healthiest, but it's yummy. Enjoy. Get enough sleep. Financial. Be creative about budgeting and spending. Meet with someone who specializes in helping people with finances at no or low cost. Environmental. Appreciate nature. God did a great thing when he made us and nature, so appreciate it. Seek out experiences that have a calming effect. What calms you may not calm somebody else, but that doesn't matter. Find something that calms you. Occupational, explore career or volunteer opportunities in an area you are passionate about. Here's a big one. Learn from mistakes. Everybody makes them. And last but not least, social. Make a list of supportive family, friends, coworkers, and peers. You are not alone. That's my tag on. Get involved in a support group. Okay, so those are the things that make up the dimensions. And next slide, please. When you incorporate them all together, wellness incorporates many dimensions of health that influence an individual's total well-being. So by focusing on those 8 dimensions, that's what we talk about, your complete wellness, okay? And for the next slides, that concludes my presentation. If you have your cameras, I don't have these to print out, but take a picture because I want to identify if you know of anyone who's in crisis or if you yourself are in crisis. These are some resources that Anne Arundel County has available. If you'll leave that up just for a second, if anybody wants to take a picture, you can. I won't go over these. And then, everybody good? Got your cameras? Okay, I'm gonna move to the next slide. And this is the community mental health resources that are available both nationwide and countywide. And if you have any questions about what I presented today or about the program, the next slide has the email. It's Health Ambassador Program at aacounty.org. And that concludes my presentation. So I hope you ladies got at least 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets of knowledge. I hope it blessed you. I hope it encourages you. And last but not least, like I said, with mental wellness and mental health, you are never alone. There's always somebody or some resource available to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Kia. How did you guys enjoy that presentation? Awesome. Mental health is just so important, especially nowadays, because everything just seems to be going all over the place, that we need to be able to cope with life. And we need sources and resources and tools to be able to navigate this thing called life, right? So if you guys look right there, the table behind you all right here, that is a mental health table, and we are actually offering mental health first aid training here at the TCOT Center on June 9th. That's going to be offered between 8 and 5 p.m. So if you guys are interested in just getting certified for free, feel free before leaving to check out that table back there to get some more information. And right now, we're just going to invite Miss Tiffany Harvey just to share a testimony of what the Lord has done for her. So give it up for Miss Tiffany Harvey, ladies.
Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone looks so beautiful today. So I just want to take you all just on a little journey really quick. How many people had that playlist? You know, the playlist that you had when you was going out with your girls? Raise your hand. You know, or that playlist right before you about to go make love to your husband or your boo. We all had it. Or maybe that playlist. Or that playlist, it doesn't matter what song it was, it just had every kind of song on there. That's your favorite playlist you play over and over again. Yes. So who remembers the song Understanding by Escape? How about You Made a Fool of Me by Michelle? How about Jerry LeVer, Baby Hold On to Me? See, all those songs was on my playlist, and I played them over and over again. I sung them loud, proud, and out of tune every day until June 20th, June 2020, when I could no longer play those songs anymore. Because every time I heard the words to those songs, the pain that I felt was just unbearable. So to this day, they are not on my playlist. So just a little bit about my story, just so you all understand. I was married for 3 years. We had a beautiful son. We had a beautiful home. We had great jobs. So you'll think on paper, we're good. We had a happy marriage. But since the beginning of my marriage, I saw him changing. His pattern changed. His behavior changed. He started coming home later and later. The communication stopped. The intimacy stopped. And I just couldn't take it anymore. So I tried talking to him. We tried marriage counseling. But I just felt in my heart I just was not being heard. So after going a whole month without speaking to each other, I had enough. I said, something has to change today. So I remember this old saying, time apart makes the heart grow fonder. So in my mind, I'm thinking if we take some time apart, our love will grow stronger and we will get better and come back together again. But when I told him this, his response was to go out and purchase a house and ask for a divorce. You all don't understand the rage and anger I felt inside. But when I thought my heart couldn't bleed anymore, I overheard him telling his mom I was never his queen. A piece of me broke that day. I remember the apostle speaking at one afternoon class for, prayer that he was doing. And he talked about your heart your heart when it grows harder or hardened. And at that very moment, I knew exactly how that felt because my heart was growing hardened. And I didn't want to feel that way. And I remember crying hysterically. And I remember falling to my knees asking God, please help me get through this because this is not how I want to feel. And I heard God clearly that day said, Tiffany, you need to go talk to someone because if you don't let it out, your heart is going to harden. So I continued to seek spiritual therapy, but I knew it wasn't enough, and I had to go get professional help that day. I had to go seek out a true therapist. They both got me through the storm that just entered my life that I didn't even see coming. So over the next few months, I sought help. I leaned on my family. I leaned on my friends. But most of all, that storm got me closer to God. So not all storms come in your life to kill you. They come to stretch you because sometimes the assignment that God has for you is bigger than what you think. So that means the storm got to be bigger. So that storm came in and it wreaked havoc on my life. But to this day, I stand here before you with the grace of God, therapy, friends, family, where I have my own business now that I started through this storm. I may be a single mother now, but my son knows that I'm the best thing that he will ever have. And he better hear this. But most of all, I learned what it is to lean on God. I learned the lessons out of that storm. So if you are going through any storm, don't look at it that it's going to last forever, because it's not. There's nowhere in the history books to say it rained forever. The sun has to come out. The rainbows has to come out. But I will tell you, learn the lesson from the storm. Now, my lesson was to never sell yourself short, ever again, and never settle for less, because that's what I did. So God did not bring him for me. He did not design him for me. I chose him. So I have to take my role and responsibility in that marriage. But I thank God for the storm. Now, I'm still in that storm, but it's okay. I'm not worried about it. I don't worry about it anymore because I know God has my back and he already won that for me because I turned it over to him a long time ago. So for anyone who has a storm, and it could be a divorce, it could be addiction, it could be health, financial, whatever it is, remember to take care of yourself. Put yourself first and realize what you need to get through that storm. Self-care, soul care is important. It's just as important when we say mental health. Remember self-care and soul care. Because at the end of the day, it's you. You have to take care of yourself. You have to figure out what's worked for you and be happy.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Miss Tiffany. What a wonderful testimony. Thank you for your transparency and just being open with us. Miss Tiffany actually has a table back there over here to your left with mocktails, and we have some desserts back there. So we have the entrepreneurs. Is there any entrepreneurs here today? All right, awesome, awesome. There's so many more women entrepreneurs nowadays than ever before. So even just the entrepreneurs and everybody else, we just want you guys to meet us over there in the through the doors, just for some mingle, networking, get to know one another, see if we can connect in certain ways that we're not normally able to on a regular day. So we have desserts and mocktails back there. So everybody has their raffle tickets. You have your raffle tickets. Make sure you take a look right now. We're going to announce 2 winners. And we're also going to announce 3 more raffles before the end of this event, okay? You didn't get one? Can you get a raffle ticket for her? We're gonna get Pastor Ingrid a raffle ticket because she wants to win something today. Thank you, ma'am. I think we're good now. All right, ladies. We have some really good prizes for you guys today, too. So let's see. I'm not even going to look. All right. 5, 6, 6, 3, 3, 6. Yeah! All right, one more. 5, 6, 6, 3, 1, 8. We got a winner? All right. Congratulations, ladies. Enjoy. So, up next, we are going to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Ingrid Shanklin. Please give her a round of applause, ladies.
Well, good afternoon. How is everybody today? Well, with all the content that has been shared, I really don't need to share anything else. But I really, talking about mental health is something very near and dear to my heart because I have my own mental health journey. And I think that when we talk about mental health, I had an opportunity to share with Stephanie before the whole event began. And when we talk about mental health, we talk about it in whispers and snickers because we don't want to be the one who is identified or labeled as being mentally ill. And I think that if I were to be blanketed, using a very wide brush, every one of us has something that causes a little mental illness within us. Everybody does. And the reason why I know that is because we've all had some kind of trauma. Everyone has experienced some kind of trauma, and there have been scientific studies that have been done of late that say that trauma is intergenerational. And so basically trauma will change your genetic profile and your DNA. So that if there is a traumatized person, they will give birth to traumatized people who give birth to traumatized people. The people who are traumatized tertiary traumatization don't even have to have, or even secondary, don't have anything to do with the primary trauma. But because it becomes generational, it lasts and lasts. So some of the things that we endure, anxiety, depression, some of us have a very significant degree of mental illness where you talk about the psychotic and schizoid mental illnesses where they're much more serious and much more involved. But unfortunately, and especially in the African American community, we do not like to discuss our mental health. And so what I want you to do, because I don't want to trigger anybody, but there is something called the Adverse Childhood Experiences quiz, if you will. And what that does is it rates a score. And you answer the questions and then you tally your score. And some of those things ask, like, have you ever been involved in a home where there was domestic violence? Have you ever been involved in a significant car accident? Have you ever experienced a natural disaster? Have you ever yourself experienced any type of abuse or any kind of traumatic behavior that was towards you, the victim of a crime, and so on and so forth? And those things are the, they give birth to mental illness in us. Because sometimes mental illness is environmental, sometimes mental illness is inherited. And sometimes when I say that it's environmental, some things around us that we cannot control. There are things in our families that we cannot control. And I'll just be honest with you, I have my own mental health journey. And because I had some childhood trauma and sexual abuse, I have borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is, it's a disorder of your personality, but it gives you the sort of thinking like, that with insecurity and levels of anxiety that are not appropriate, the inability to modulate and regulate in relationships. I've also had, I have adult ADHD. And adult ADHD, usually if you have ADHD, you've had it all your life. You just don't know it. And so the numbers say that significant amount of middle-aged women or women who are my age, over 55, are being diagnosed now in numbers that were not understood before. And so if you are diagnosed with ADHD, I was diagnosed at 49. I was misdiagnosed at 49. I went to see a therapist. I did the little assessment, and they said, no, you're on the spectrum, but you don't have it. But here's the thing about mental illness and mental dysregulation is that you need to know yourself. We talk about self-care. Self-care is not only getting a mani-pedi or going to the spa. Self-care is being self-aware, okay? And there are times when you know that something is not right, and trust me when I tell you, your family members know that there is something wrong with you. And you make it very difficult for them to live with you when you won't address the issues that you have, or you won't believe them when they say something is wrong. And usually out of frustration, those things come up and they come out. Usually it's in a situation where maybe there's a fight and then, it comes out, well, what is the matter with you? And you're not perfect and you act like a crazy person. That's really not the way to go about, finding a diagnosis or even reaching out. But unfortunately, when these things go unchecked, it comes to that level where your people who are with you, the closest to you, know that something is wrong. They know something is wrong, and usually because we put up such a da-da-da, they're afraid to say something. And so I just want to just read a few things so that we'll know exactly what mental health is, because sometimes we call something mental health that is or it isn't. The anxiety disorders are panic disorders and phobias. How many people in here are afraid of something? I mean, like really afraid. Like really afraid. I'm claustrophobic, okay? I don't know how many people here have claustrophobia, but mine is such that I do not even like watching things like submarines or people in tight spaces on television. I can't watch it on television. It was so bad that Port Discovery used to be in Baltimore years ago, or one of those places where you follow your kids through all these tunnels. And my son was a toddler, and I went through the tube with him, and I had an anxiety attack, and I left him in the tube. He was 2 years old. A young man came up to me and he said, ma'am, is this your kid? And I was like, oh, yeah, I did leave him in there, didn't I? Oops, my bad. He doesn't look like me, so he's really my daycare kid. But, there comes a time when you have to own and hear what I'm saying. People who have mental illnesses, they're normal people. When we see people who are out of themselves, it's gone unchecked and it's gone unmedicated. And let me just say, for those of you who take medication, who take medication, who take medication, you need to take your medication every single day without fail, on time, and don't get ultra spiritual and super religious. Oh, I believe I'm healed. Oh, God. Well, you're healed when you take your medication. Okay? God is the one who created science. Don't get it twisted. He is the greatest chemist. He is the greatest pharmacist. He is an apothecary. He is the healer and the great physician. How do you not understand that God created everything in the earth, and that includes medication? But in order to be on medication, you have to be diagnosed. In order to be diagnosed, you need to see a healthcare professional. I have a therapist. I have a psychiatrist. I check in with both of them. Some of the things that we deal with, we know that it's not normal for us. We cannot bring it together. And we won't seek help because we've told ourselves there's nothing wrong. So the panic disorders are excessive and uncontrollable worry, strong fears around everyday things and situations. And how many of you know that we live in a very scary world? The world is scary, and now it's to the point where when you go to the mall, the first thing you look for is not Nordstrom, but it's the exits. No, for real. I love to shop, but the first thing I do is, okay, Lord, I'm going in here, I'm in and out. I'm not staying for lunch like we used to do in the old days. Like, girl, no. I'm in here for one thing, and I am looking at the exits, and then I'm asking myself, what happens if something pops off? Because it's scary. But how do you live in a scary world and not be overcome by it? You have to self-regulate. You have to have, if you notice that something is wrong, something is wrong. There are unwanted thoughts, panic attacks, and anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness. There are mood disorders. Mood disorders, people feel hopeless and sad and tired and numb for long periods of time. How many people in here have had it where they're tired all the time and all they want to do is sleep? And I'm not talking about, you've been working on the railroad all the live long day. I'm not talking about that, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the situation in your life where you find it difficult to cope, and the way you cope is by sleeping. Those are mood disorders. Those are mood disorders. It's not normal. Lethargy and malaise are not normal. We have, now some of it is hormonal. Women of a certain age are going through a hormonal shift. So let's not, chalk everything up to mental illness. There are various things that are going on, but that in concert with a mental disturbance is enough to take people over the edge if they are not understanding and aware. Remember, self-care is being self-aware. So then you have eating disorders. How many people know that an eating disorder is a mental illness? And how many of us we eat, and we eat, and we eat. And then we may vomit, we may use diuretics, we may use laxatives, and all of those things, if we eat, how many of you know that eating is not, eating food is fuel. Food is not your friend. And when you see people on those television shows where they weigh 700 pounds, they're eating because something is disordered in their world. Eating is a thing. We all eat, but eating to excess is really a thing. And how many of you know that people who are, they medicate themselves, they self-medicate? We have a thing where, why don't you just get over it? Why don't you just quit that? Well, who grows up and says, when I get big, I'm going to be an alcoholic? People say, when I grow up, I'm going to be president. When I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. Nobody says when I grow up I'm going to be a drug addict. And then we have to be kind and compassionate to people among us who are medicating, because for every what, there is a why. And so in the mental health community, because if you are in community with people who have discussed mental health and are concerned about it, you have a mental health community. We need to understand people. They are broken, but they are not beyond repair. People who have issues. I'm not crazy. I'm one of the smartest people I know. But I did not know that because I was depressed, because I was discouraged, because someone had access to me that shouldn't have, and I carried the trauma in my body. Did you know that digestive disturbances is a trauma and it causes mental illness? IBS, IBS-C, all of those gut issues is trauma that you hold on to because you don't know what to do with it. You know, some stuff is so effective that it overwhelms you and you don't know how to get rid of it. There are psychotic disorders where it affects people and they don't understand what is real and what isn't real. Schizophrenia is an example of psychotic disorder. And then personality disorders are patterns of thoughts and feelings and behaviors that may last for a long time, and they create challenges. If your behavior is changing, your personality is changing, and it doesn't cease, this may be something that you want to address. If a personality disorder is people developing healthy and satisfying relationships. You see people, the famous people, and you know they're on husband number 5. They're on husband number 5. And you ask yourself, why they can't find a man? Why they can't keep a man? Something is the matter. There is a problem. You know, people who, we know people who got engagement rings in every hue, in every side. They done been engaged to everybody. They done married everybody. And every time they get married, they put on the white dress. And I'm like, you on number 5. Your dress need to be beige or pink or green or yellow. It need to be a nice shade of amber, because, you just a serial bride. You just a serial bride. You don't want to be a wife. You just want to be a bride. Something is wrong. I remember there was a very famous woman who her husband had been involved in all kinds of things beyond her control, and they had gone before the judge, and the judge divorced them, said by, order of the court, you're divorced, blah, blah, blah. And she was blaming the husband, and the man told her, well, ma'am, you are not without fault. You, my dear, are a narcissist. Mental illness, delusions of grandeur, thinking yourself to be, sometimes people have mental breaks when they seem to be overtly religious and their thinking is disordered in that they think they are God. When you see people on the side of the road muttering, a lot of homeless people are mentally ill. A lot of homeless people are on drugs. A lot of people on homeless people are alcoholics. No one desires to be homeless. No one desires to be on substances, but when you think about what substances do, they blunt the pain of trauma. A childhood disorder, a large group of mental illnesses start to affect people when they're children. And like I said before, one of the things is ADHD. And you have that child, he just can't sit still. He just won't sit still. He's very smart, but he just won't focus. But I'm gonna tell you right now, he gonna get a whipping when he get home. He doesn't need a whooping. He needs your undivided attention to figure out what is the matter with him because he is struggling. He cannot sit still. He cannot concentrate. He cannot do 2 things in a row. Valerie, you feel me. My husband would come home and he'd say, what have you been doing all day? Chasing my tail. Chasing my tail. I'm completely overwhelmed because I have 4 loads of laundry. I cannot figure out which one to do first. I've sorted them and sorted them and sorted them, and then I hear squirrel, chipmunk, So I leave the laundry, and here I am hyper-focused on buying something online. And I can't just buy the one thing online because I have anxiety. What if I buy the last thing? What if I don't buy the right thing? Oh my God, there's 30 kinds of bread. Do I buy wheat? Do I buy white wheat? Do I buy pumpernickel? Do I buy rye? Do I buy warble? Oh my God, do I buy buns? Do I buy rolls? Buns and rolls? Oh my God, what happens if I get the wrong kind of buns? What happens if I get the wrong kind of rolls? What happens if I get home and I can't make a sandwich? And that is funny, but it's real. It's real. And we talk about it and we snicker and we laugh, and people are trapped in patterns and behaviors that make it difficult for them to function. And so when I had a dear friend, and she called me one day and she said, I'm hoping that after I tell you what I tell you, I hope that we can still be friends. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, I think you might be bipolar. And I told her, I said, well, I will find a doctor and I will go to see the doctor. I said, I'm not angry with you. I love you because you cared enough about me to address what you saw. She said, you know, you're up and down. What I found out was that I was kind of like this. I wasn't bipolar, but I had ADHD. I have ADHD. Am I ashamed of that? No, I'm not. Have I been traumatized? Yes, I have. There are studies that say Holocaust survivors have been significantly traumatized. I mean, there is really no other, there's not even a word to talk about the level of trauma. African American people suffer generational trauma from slavery. Victims in September 11th, they've done studies on those children who were not even born yet, who suffer from mental illness as a result of their parents being killed or having survived and understood what was actually going on and seeing things that are unthinkable, and their children struggle. So when we talk about mental illness, we need to begin to talk about it in earnest. Remember those people who have suicidal ideation. Remember those people who are so stressed and so anxious they cannot function. Remember those people who want to do things normally. Sometimes people with ADHD and anxiety and depression cannot keep a job. It's impossible because they're completely overwhelmed by simple tasks. And this is a real thing. I know for you who don't suffer, it is a real thing. And because we don't talk about it in real time, we see them and we say, oh, she a little extra. And she might be. Because sometimes when we have a mental illness, especially if we're struggling, we tend to be extra. If I have the right car, if I buy fly clothes, if I have all the right purses, if I can wear red bottoms, if I got a man who makes six figures and I can drive a Maserati, if I can do this and my kids are perfect and my world is well ordered, maybe. But that's not self-esteem. That's other esteem. Everything else makes me feel good rather than me feeling good with myself. Insecurity is the daughter of mental illness. And some of us deal with insecurity to the point where it rules our world, and we have to make sure that everything in our world is perfectly ordered. Our children are stressed out because they need to represent well, because my insecurity has bled over to my children. Am I saying that it's not possible to live functionally with mental illness? No, I'm not, because I live functionally to a lot of degree. But I take medication. And I'm just going to say this, and then I think my time is over. I don't know if that's right. But here's how you do medication, or here's how you look for a therapist. Whenever I'm looking for a doctor, I Google the best therapist near me. I don't want someone who made C's and partied their way through college. I wanted the nerdy guy who wore the same thing every day, who didn't have a girlfriend. He was an incel. He was an involuntarily celibate. That's who I want. I want the guy that all he did was study. Now, when he got his PhD, he found his life, okay? He got himself together. Now he got a fly crib and a car and everything, and now all the girls are coming like, no, 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 boo-boo, I remember you. You were the one that used to make fun of me. I want the person who made A. I don't want nobody who went to college in the Dominican Republic. I want you to go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Howard, whatever. I don't want none of that. You couldn't do it in America, so you had to go to a foreign country. No, no, no. So then I Google the best therapist near me, and then I look for the reviews. Start with 5, and then it's 4.9, 4.8. I do not go below 4.5. I look at the negative reviews because, some people have sour grapes because they couldn't get the kind of Band-Aid they wanted. And then there's other, like there's the best and then the second. So I always look. When I find the best, I call. Are you taking patients? And then when I find a doctor and I need another one, if you were me, who would you see? You need to start asking your doctors because, see, doctors think like you do. They're not going to someone who is jacked up. So I ask my doctors, who do you see? And when they tell me, I call, are you taking patients? I was referred by Dr. So-and-so. Then when you find a therapist, here's the other thing that's so important, people. Ladies, my sisters, girlfriends, whoever y'all want to be. When you find a therapist, tell your therapist the truth. In my King James Apostle Paul voice, I beseech thee, my dear sisterin, tell the truth. Your doctor cannot help you if you do not help them help you. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I hear voices. I am confused. I found myself somewhere that I had not planned on going. When I am manic, I have sex. When I am manic, I shop. When I am depressed, I do not bathe. For days, I am depressed, and I spend money like it's mine. When I go through this, this is what I feel. I'm having difficulties in my marriage because I cannot properly communicate to my spouse what is going on, and they can't figure it out. So then when you find your therapist and you do the intake interview and you talk to them about what's going on, if he says, I think we need medication, then he will tell you, okay, well, this is on the good side, this is on the extreme side, or this is on the very heavy side. I'll just be honest with you. I take Cymbalta, 60 milligrams. I take Lamictal, 200 milligrams, and I take Strattera, 20 milligrams every day, every single day. And what I do when I take those medications is that I monitor myself. Am I sleeping? Does it constipate me? Am I having weird dreams? Because that's a part of the medication. Am I dreaming weird stuff? How do I feel? Am I hungry? Is my appetite gone? And if any of these things are true, whatever they are, tell your doctor. And then if that medication is not working, I'm going to say this, do not WebMD yourself and stop taking your medication without the doctor's permission, because you will go through withdrawals. Some of the medication, you will harm yourself. Some of those substances are controlled. And then once you find the right medication, it might be trial and error. I was on 3 or 4 meds before I found the ones that work for me. Prozac, Wellbutrin. I was on a bunch of them. And then I found the ones that work. And sometimes you're on a medication for a while, and you start to notice the symptoms are a little bit more prevalent. Okay, something is different. My body is used to this now. And you know how I know? Because you know how when y'all wash your hair and the conditioner and the shampoo is not working, what do? you change. Your hair is not as full or whatever as it was, so you change. But we don't do that with medication. We would rather suffer than speak the truth. And then when you find the medication that works, take it. And then you ask your doctor, is there anything else you need me to do while I'm taking this medication? Can I have alcohol? Because I'm going to say some of us in the household of faith, y'all act like y'all don't drink. Let's just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Because I know some of us got more rolls in a bakery and you got it all trussed all up. And I know your behind is not that smooth. You looking all like a bag of wet laundry. You got all them dents and buck. Stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just quit it. Like my kids used to say, leave me alone, you dummy. Just stop. Help yourself by helping yourself. Self-care is being self-aware. I'm going to say this, and then I believe it's time for me to take my seat, Ada. Psychiatry. Psychiatry is very difficult, and most psychiatrists do not take insurance. So a psychiatrist will be the one to prescribe your medication. Psychologists only tell you what the problem is. A psychiatrist will help you with medication. They will manage you on your medication. When you start with psychiatrists, same thing, psychiatrists near me. A good place to start with psychiatrists is Psychology Today. You go to Psychology Today, you put in what you need, they will give you a list. The first thing you do, are you taking patients? Do you take insurance? If they say no, I am in need of psychiatric care, but I am unable to pay the rate that you charge. Is there a sliding scale? Will you see me based on my pay grade, my salary? And most times they will. And if they don't, move on. Some of the really good ones are like $80, $90 a session. And if you cannot afford that, stop buying shoes. Hello. Because you'll spend $795 on a pair of Louboutin, and you know they hurt your feet. The toe, I'm telling you right now, y'all wearing them, your 50 is coming. 50 is coming. 60, 70, and your feet are going to be like, oh, yeah, you're going to remember me. Okay, remember that time when you thought you was cute and you was wearing the pointy-toe stilettos? Because I used to love me a pointy-toe stiletto. And now I'm like, well, do you have that tennis shoe in a size 10? I'm trying to be fly, so I got the Nikes, and the Air Force Ones are kind of heavy and they hurt my back. But stop spending money on clothes. Stop spending money on shoes. And take care of yourself. Stop shopping to soothe what is wrong with you. Stop buying things. Stop shopping. Oh, I was a shopper, and I was trying to regulate, didn't know what the problem was. I had gone to Vegas one time, and y'all know the shopping in Vegas is out of control. I'm like, thank you! Hallelujah. I feel the shopping anointing. Thank you. Never felt it before, Lord, but I thank you. Glory. Hallelujah. Thank you. And the little salesperson is looking like, ma'am, may I help you? Oh, I'm sorry, I had a moment. But I wrecked a credit card. And I came home with all this stuff, and a couple of months later, my hand was shaking trying to make that payment. And I heard plainly, you are in debt, and you are not wearing those clothes anymore. I had a problem. And that's a part of it. When we do things, we're medicating. Medication isn't just drugs and alcohol. We soothe ourselves with retail therapy. We make ourselves feel better because we look better than everybody else. I feel better because I have a nice car. I feel better because I have a new house. I feel better because I have cute kids. Okay, well, sometimes you can't get a new car, and sometimes you can't wear nice clothes, and sometimes your kids, all you can do is dress them up. Folks be looking at you like, are y'all cousins? Mental illness is a thing. Self-care is being self-aware. Self-care is not always going to the spa. Self-care is not all, because we're always talking about, it's all about me. I'm doing me. Okay, well, while you doing you, take care of you. Nobody else should be as concerned about your health care than you. And when we get older, it's especially detrimental because lifelong trauma unaddressed affects us neurologically, dementia, Parkinson's, things of that nature. We need to understand that life is not perfect. And here's one of the things that I'm going to say. People often want to know why I have mental illness or I have struggles with my depression, anxiety. I don't know why. There are some things that you can investigate, but you don't know. You can look in your family and see who is in the family line and what they dealt with, and then it will give you an idea of what you're going through. But for the most part, I do not know. And you may never know, so stop asking God, because the Bible says the things that you know are what you know, but the secret things belong to God. You don't have to know everything, and God is not entitled to tell you everything. So here's the thing. Some people may go to the moon with Jeff Bezos. Some people might go to the Himalayas. Some people might discover the cure for a very serious illness. Some people might get their own reality show. Some people might be rich and famous, but you may be tethered to the Lord with a short cord for the rest of your days. And that is okay. If he wants to be exclusively your caregiver, you're getting the best care you've ever had. Stop asking and start basking in the afterglow of a Savior who loves you so much that he will not allow you to do things that distract you from him, that keep you from him, and that keep you from being on your face before the throne. I don't know what happened to me. I told my therapist, I said, well, I remember some stuff. He said, I'm not talking about the stuff you remember. I'm talking about the stuff you don't. And that session's only supposed to last an hour. Mine lasted 2. It is unethical for your counselor to touch you. That session was so devastating for me, he hugged me. I was emotionally disheveled. And all of these things started coming to my mind, flashbacks and all that. And I asked the Lord, why did this happen to me? And he said to me very plainly, I saw you, and I supervised you in it. What could have happened to you did not happen to you. And so for those of us who are wondering and questioning, for those of us who go to bed with a wet pillow and you're not old enough to have hot flashes, self-care is being self-aware. Mental illness is not a stigma. You should not be stigmatized by mental illness. You should be asking for help. And if you have a friend and you are a real friend, I mean a true dyed-in-the-wool, ride or die, we gonna get through this together, Laverne and Shirley kind of friendship, you need to talk to your girlfriend and tell her, look, I think something is the matter. If you want to really love someone, be honest with them. And if you really want to feel loved, believe them. So I'll just say this. Be encouraged. Don't get distracted. And don't stop doing stuff. Or stop doing stuff on your own. If you're in treatment, stop thinking you know everything. Just stay until it's done. Let your bread get fully baked before you take it out the stove. I know some of y'all don't know how to cook, so I'm gonna put it this way. Let that thing stay in the microwave till it's done. Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear or be dismayed, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Stop being scared. I'm going to hold on to you, and I'm never going to let anything happen to you. And if you just do what is necessary, I will take you the rest of the way. God bless you. Thank you for being so kind and so attentive. Thank you.
You can stay up. Thank you, Pastor Ingrid. We could always count on Pastor Ingrid to bring in a word filled with wisdom and a little laugh, right? All right, so right now we're just going to invite our lovely ladies. We're having a panelist discussion. So who's excited to have a discussion? Y'all excited? So it's going to be an integrational discussion from high school to seasoned women. So right now we're just going to go ahead and ask all of the panelists to please join us on stage. You can come and make your way up here right now. And while we're doing that, everyone will go ahead and get a chance to introduce themselves. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, ladies. Everybody just make their way up. And while we're doing that, we are going to announce another raffle. Ladies, make sure you get your raffle tickets out. Oh, this one. And I'll take this. Thank you. All right. Okay. 566323. You want? Yay! Congratulations. Okay, so does everyone have a mic?
Good afternoon. My name is Pastor Valerie Sanford, and I am the women's pastor at Fresh Start Church, Glen Burnie.
Good afternoon again. I'm Tiffany Harvey.
My name is Aria Bush.
Y'all know.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karis Shanklin. I am a youth pastor here at New Life Fellowship International Ministries.
Good afternoon, lovely ladies. My name is Stephanie Trice. I am with the Anne Arundel County Mental Health Agency in Crisis Response.
Okay, I don't know where our fearless leader is, but I'm going to go ahead and start. And it's easier to ask for, what is it? It's easier to ask for forgiveness and permission, so I'm just going to go ahead and go do it. Okay, so we have some panelists, and I'm going to be asking them questions from my phone. And so if I'm not talking loud enough, if you cannot, go back? Oh. If you cannot understand a response, please let us know. And if you would like them to elaborate on anything that they've said, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. Is that okay? All right, so this is for all of the women on the panel. This is for women in your age range. What do you believe is the biggest stressor some are currently facing or have faced as mothers, wives, students, and entrepreneurs? For women in your age range, what do you believe is the biggest stressor some are currently facing or have faced?
Okay, I'll go first. I think for women in my age range, 25, no, I'm just playing. I think for women in my age range are probably facing some of the biggest stresses, I believe, are transitioning through life, at being at new places in life and new statuses. For example, I'm widowed, and maybe in 5 to 6 years, I'm looking towards retirement. Well, that's a challenge right there, just knowing that what I maybe planned on 10 to 15 years ago has changed. And will I, have enough money to live out the rest of my life? And what does that look like alone if I stay alone? So I think those are some of the stresses that women.
Very good. Anybody else? Tiffany?
So I'm 40 plus.
Oh, girl, bye.
Uh,
40 plus. Really?
Okay, I'm 41. I'm 41. Yeah, so, but I would say for my age range, I have a lot of friends right now who've never been married, who still want a desire to get married, also want kids. So, once you get to 40s, a lot of people start looking at you like, what's wrong with you? What you waiting on? Why you so picky? So it's really hard sometimes when I talk to them and they start beating themselves up, and really it gets in their head to really start thinking like, is something really wrong with me? But as a friend, I have to tell them like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't change your list, because look at me. Please use me as an example. Do not settle for less. So I know that is very hard for a lot of women in their late 30s, early 40s who've never been married, because they always get that same question: when you gonna get married and have some kids?
Amen. Tiffany, I think I know you well enough that in a nutshell, what she just said is, do not settle for bologna just because it's meat. No animal in the world produces bologna. Okay? Bologna is formed from scraps. So if he's not USDA prime, put him back. Is that good enough, Tiffany? Okay, just checking. Just checking. Does anybody else want to chime in? Miss Ariana? Aria, I'm sorry, forgive me. Miss Aria, Karis, do you have anything that you want to add to that, being that you are on the younger end of the spectrum?
Probably like, because I'm a student, it's probably just like expectations with school and at home at the same time.
Okay.
I can chime in. I think for women my age, I guess I consider myself newly a woman because I just turned 25, so I'm not like a teenager anymore. I think the greatest challenge is decision fatigue, like figuring out what you want to do, because I'm young still, so I have like options. I can do this, I can do this, I can go back to school, I can get married, I can have kids, I can buy a house, I can do all these different things. So I think just deciding what life you want to live is probably the most stressful, because you have so many options.
Very good. Very good. Stephanie, would you like to answer?
I would love to answer.
Okay.
So I, like Tiffany, am 40 plus. I'm in that group. And what I would say for me personally, I'm a mother and a wife, and I work full time. And it's challenging. It's really challenging to balance everything, to make sure that I'm meeting the demands of my family, to make sure that I'm meeting the demands of myself, right? My expectations for myself are high. So that's challenging, right? To make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And I noticed that with my friends as well. Same things, that they're experiencing the same thing. So it's nice to be able to have people to lean on, to speak to about those things as well.
And did you notice that when they answered the questions that they did not include that they are comparing themselves to anyone else? Did you notice that everybody had their own story, everybody has their own narrative, but they did not mention that they were trying to be like anybody else? Their age and station is as unique as they are. And they have to be themselves because it's too difficult and too time-consuming to be anyone else. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for that. Now, this is a question, again, I guess, this is a question for all of the panelists, not age-specific. What does stress, depression, and/or anxiety look like for you? Any takers? This is a heavy question, so if you don't want to answer, you can choose not to.
I guess for me, is crying. A whole lot of crying. And I didn't realize that, because up until my divorce, honestly, I have to be honest with myself, I didn't have any really major stressors in my life. I grew up, well. I never really experienced too much, working. I always worked, I always had good jobs, I always had good friends, I always had family support. So up until that point, I was like, okay, work was, hard. Military was a little hard and challenging, but nothing to that point where I had stress, where I felt like I did not want to get out my bed in the morning, where I just wanted to ball up in a corner and just cry, but I found myself crying a lot. So I had to learn for the first time in my life what was my stressor, and it's crying. When I just start crying in the middle of a meeting, I'm like, excuse me, let me take 5 for 2 seconds. Mine is crying, but I'm happy I recognize that now, and I won't push that down. And I know just to cry and get it out. For me, get it out helps, and then talking about it.
You know how healthy crying is? And some of us don't cry. But I'll say this, the body will cry. The tears your eyes refuse to shed. Your body will cry. So it's good. You might want to watch a movie and your tears will come out. It don't have nothing to do with the movie. But you just sit there and weep because tears cleanse the soul. So go home and watch Terms of Endearment or a movie about a dog that got hit by a car or, something that's going to make you do the ugly cry. Because sometimes the ugly cry is what you need. You don't even know why you're crying, but girl, I can't talk now. I got to go. I got to have this fit. I'll talk to you later. Okay, so moving right along. Question number 3 is for Stephanie Trice, our mental health professional. Can you share the difference between stress, depression, and anxiety, and what causes different dangerous levels of stress, depression, and anxiety?
I brought my cheat sheets.
That's
And
fine.
I made copies for everybody in the audience as well, in case you would like to have this to take home with you. I think it's, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So with respect to stress, I mean, what I'm going to pose back to the audience is, do you all think that stress is there positive stress, or is stress only negative? Is sometimes stress positive?
Yes.
Right, okay, excellent. That's excellent that we can recognize that. So yes, absolutely. There is something called eustress. Eustress is that positive stress. Those are stressors like somebody's getting married, they're starting a new relationship with somebody, they're maybe moving, which is a positive thing for them. And then there's something called distress. That's the bad stress, right? That's when we're not at our optimal performance. That's those things like potentially a divorce or a loss of a family member, something that makes us be in a bad headspace. The challenge is stress is dangerous when it becomes toxic or chronic, right? Because it has all of those other negative health implications for us, like Pastor Ingrid spoke about earlier. So it impacts our physical health, it impacts our mental health, it impacts really our overall body wellness. And so that's when stress becomes dangerous. With respect to anxiety, there's been a lot of really good conversation about anxiety as well, but genetics plays a role into, whether or not we are born as anxious people, right? If our parents are generally anxious people, we may be anxious ourselves. There may be situations that evoke anxiety in us. And so things that create danger with anxiety is if we have an anxiety disorder and we don't seek treatment for it, that's when it can become dangerous, right? So if we're not seeking assistance and we're going through significant trouble with anxiety, all the anxiety disorders that Pastor Ingrid spoke about could potentially lead to us using substances, engaging in other dangerous behaviors. That's when it becomes an issue. And then when we talk about depression, we're looking at a lack of us wanting to engage in meaningful activity. That's when it's really dangerous. When people are wanting to sleep all the time, when they are disengaging from activities that bring them joy and happiness, or those things no longer bring them joy and happiness, that's when we have to be concerned about ourselves, about our family, about our friends, or just about the general public, okay? So it's important that, if you see somebody on the street that looks sad, speak to them, say hello, maybe start a conversation with them. It's important because us helping somebody else means that at some point that favor may be returned to us one day. So with respect to depression, I do just want to mention that it can lead to individuals engaging in other dangerous behaviors, as we mentioned, but it also can lead to suicidal ideation, suicidal behaviors, or even attempts. I did add some information on here about suicide. I do just want to be really transparent. I am a trainer in applied suicide intervention skills training, which is a really amazing 2-day training. But it's for everybody. I want to just be clear that if you are worried about somebody and concerned that somebody might be suicidal, ask the question directly. Do not be concerned about pushing them over the edge, that if I ask them if they're suicidal, that's going to push them over the edge. That is 100% a fallacy. So that is it. Thank you.
So, are we being helped? Are we encouraged? Are we scared? Are we overly self-conscious? Everybody has stress. No one expects to be widowed or divorced. You know, being a kid, and Miss Aria, how old are you? 13, Lord have mercy. It is difficult to be a child. Think about all the pressure that social media adds to the mix, where everything is manufactured and the people don't look like you look and they look better than you look. And let me just say, they put that stuff on in the morning and take it off at night. It's not real. And so the pressures to conform, the pressures, you know, there's so many things that people are pressuring kids to do now, and schools don't teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. They teach everything else. So your kids can't get a job, but they know how to do everything else. So I thank you, Ms. Aria, for being honest with us, for helping us today, because you are an extraordinary young woman, and I thank you. So here is the next question, and this is for all of the panelists. What are some ways you have been able to help other women with their mental well-being, talking to them, providing resources, or advice provided? How have you helped others?
Okay, I'll answer. I've definitely tried to help to foster an atmosphere where women are comfortable, and an atmosphere of trust. And I've been really transparent with all of the women in my circle. That is at church, at work, at home, my family. And I do thank you for your transparency, Pastor Ingrid. I am diagnosed ADHD, and one of the things why it's so misdiagnosed and misunderstood is because some of the medications that are prescribed to us are overused by college students. Like, you know, things like Adderall. And these are things that are used recreationally. And so people like me who really need it have to go through, like, you know, it's one of the most misunderstood behavioral disorders. But my therapist, my psychiatrist said, no, you really took one of the certain ones. We know for sure you really, so, you know, they said, you really got it. There's no question, no shade, no gray area, but you got it. But I do thank God for the years that have helped me to come out of shame and to get away from it being stigmatized, so that I can be real and help others to come real. Because for years I tried to pray it away and cry it away. And I caused the people in my family and my husband, people to have to live with certain things, and that was unfair to them. And like you just said, having people honest enough to tell you something's wrong. Well, when you have people around you who do not want to tell you that, they just have to live with it. You know, you cause discomfort to other people's lives. And so I've definitely tried to transfer that comfort to all of the women around me.
Now, I just want to say this, Valerie, you've had some things that have happened to you that I'm sure were never expected. You just couldn't have imagined in your wildest dreams. But how many of us know that you cannot help someone if you do not understand them? You know, we have compassion. You have mercy and compassion for people because somebody had mercy and compassion for you. And being transparent is what builds the safe environment. She was widowed. Now, most of us have husbands or significant others, and we don't know that. But for the 1 or 2 people who would say, I am widowed, and I don't know how to live my life without my husband. A woman who has a husband is not able to talk about that. But a woman who has lost her beloved can talk about that. She has against the backdrop of her own experience. And do you know, somebody told me this and I was so mad I wanted to smack them, but they were in the phone. They said, what you go through is not for you. It's for other people. And I'm like, girl, bye. But it's the truth. Tiffany has gone through a very difficult time in her life. Is she able to talk to people about heart-wrenching divorce? Is she able to talk about single parenthood when she thought when she got married that they were going to live happily ever after and the hills are alive with the sound of music? Yes. Did that happen for her? No. Is she able to encourage someone along the way in that? Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have to find our lane and stay in it. If you ain't never had a kid, you can't tell me nothing about cheering. Okay? You can't tell me nothing. Well, the doctor said, doctor ain't got no cheering. Your baby always hungry, you better fix some cornbread. Anyway, I'm just saying. Okay, anybody else want to take this question? Miss Aria, do you want to comment? I want to hear from the teenage perspective.
Oh, well, like, I have a friend group, and it's, like, only 4 of us in there. But we're pretty open. Like, we tell each other everything. So, like, when one of us is going through something, we usually, like, have walks around school or be on the phone for, like, hours at a time and just talk about it with, like, no judgment. Because you can't really judge someone and help them at the same time.
Wow. Wow. How old did you say you were? Girl, you know I was 56 before I figured that out. I was good and old, okay? I had been driving 40 years before I figured that out. She said you can't judge someone. You can't help them if you're judging them. And how many times do we understand, or how many times we figure out that what we're judging is false? We're judging because we have a situation where we think we know what's going on. We only see the outside and we make a judgment, but it's really not that. So, Miss Aria, what you were trying to say is that mind your own business and leave folk alone? Okay, okay. Sometimes it just need to be a little interpretation. Okay, all right. So, Karis, do you have anything to add to that? What are some of the ways that you've been able to help other women with their mental well-being?
I think for me, it's along the same vein as Aria. Like I was saying earlier, the stressor is decision fatigue, trying to figure out what you want to do. And so I think for me, the biggest thing that I've used is check-ins with my friends, because we're all in different areas of our life, doing different things, trying new things. And so you can get kind of lost in the shuffle of going your day-to-day. So I really try to be intentional at least once a week. I mean, you know, some days I'm really good and I can do a check-in 2 or 3 times a week. But I really strive for once a week with each of my friends, just to make sure, like, how's your heart? Are you okay? Are you really okay? Like, what's going on? Like, you know, you just want to talk, you just want to chit chat, whatever. So, and usually that just kind of sparks, like, if you start with how was your day, it usually starts like, okay, well, last week I went through this really, really hard thing. So it's just asking like the simple questions with a check-in, just making sure that everybody is okay as we're going through life and going through our different phases.
That's really good. Karis is my daughter. And for those of you who didn't know, now that she's 25, even from the time she was 14 years old, I started to divulge myself to her not only as her mother, but as a woman. And I think it's really important to be able to stay in that checking in process, because sometimes we want to mother our daughters longer than we're supposed to. You know, it's called smother mothering, where I began to treat her as an adult as she became one. Did I do it right? No, all the time. But I'm grateful that she still calls me and we'll check in periodically. I usually, you know, I'll ask her, how's your head and your heart? What's going on in your world? Are you sure that everything is okay? Okay, now, do we need to be talked off the ledge? Are you managing this? Are you lying to me? You know, and when she was younger, I would just bust in her room and ask random crazy questions. And when you do that, now I'm not suggesting y'all do it the way I did it, but I would just bust in her room and are you pregnant? Do you have a boy in the bed? And the reason why I did that is because I wanted her honest, unfiltered, because you know how when people lie, she never lied to me. But I was kind of crazy like that. But there was a method to my madness. I wanted the unfiltered answer. I did not want her to be able to think. Because, you know, when we have time to contemplate, I don't know how many good liars we have in here, but I was a good liar. When I was in my lying career, oh, I was a good liar. And I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt that she was going to be honest. So fostering those relationships with your adult children is critical to maintaining mental, emotional, spiritual, occupational, financial, wardrobe, whatever, you know, whatever kind of wellness it is, it's very important. And I think that I have helped her in the way that when she needs to be talked off a ledge, I am well enough to do that. We can't both be on the ledge. You know, I was talking, and by the time I was talking, we both out there talking about we need the Lord. It's so far down. If we fall, we both gonna die. Somebody's got to be the voice of reason. So here's the next question. This is for wives and mothers. So we have among the panel, we have one wife and we have three mothers. So I'm not going to discriminate, but I'm going to ask that whatever stage you find yourself in this question, what are some ways you have been able to handle expectations or pressure of being a mother and or a wife? And do you have any advice for those who may desire to be mothers and or a wife? I can answer that, and my Miss Sophia will know it ain't worth it. Don't do like it ain't worth it. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my brothers, I had to fight my uncles. Girl child ain't safe in a family of men. It ain't worth it. Miss Sophia home now, so many things finna change. Valerie, you're the only one on the panel that has adult children and grandchildren. So if you would bless me by sharing first, I would appreciate it because you have been a wife, you are a mother, and you are a grandmother. Would you share?
I think one of the biggest things is, what you said it, is to know yourself. Is to know yourself. So to know when you're mothering from a point of view of your own trauma, because like you, I've never busted a room. But I know some of the things I've done have, we've all done the best we can, but I know some things have come from my own trauma. And there's been some things I've had to go back and apologize for to my children and my grandchildren. But I also think, and this is, I'm going to say this, is that my first husband passed in 2018. And going through my depression and going through some things, and I met someone and remarried in 2021. Well, he passed away in February 2022. And when I tell you, I feel like I've learned God, or I've experienced a whole new level to the comfort of the Holy Ghost. But let me go back to saying that during the time that I was dating the man that I met, my children were furious. And of course, their father had just passed. And part of it was because they knew Mama just being hyper. She ain't on her medication. Probably. They probably knew. But I knew I owed it to myself to make my own decisions. And if it was a mistake, it was my mistake to make. I had to learn, where to draw the line when it came to me and my adult children. So
That's really good. You know, that's really good, learning how to draw a line with your adult children. Because sometimes, you know, if you're a single parent and you have sons, they think you their husband and their daddy. They're your husband and your father. Like, that don't work here, boo-boo. You have to be able to be present enough. And I've known Valerie for a little while now. And when she was going through it, I think we had a long conversation about this. And, you know, she was going through the throes of this. And I told her, I said, Valerie, I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to give you permission to live your life again because your husband was ill for quite some time. And when his illness progressed to a point where he was not going to get better, you had been a caregiver and not operating in the office of a wife for years. And so I said, I just, as from a friend to a friend, you did not ask me, this is unsolicited, but I want you to know that there is no judgment for you if you want to keep on living, because your husband has died, but you have not. And so it's really important to give the people in your life permission to live. Yeah, I know daddy was daddy and everything, but daddy's gone. And the only people holding on to that memory inordinately is people who have relationships already established in their lives. And she did just that. We chatted, I mean, we closed that Panera down that day, didn't we? Because I told her, I said, you know, I want to encourage you. I'm not in your situation, but I do have the ability to encourage you and to relieve you of the guilt of doubt and shame and fear and embarrassment because you want to keep living. There should be nothing wrong with that. Nothing. Give people the freedom to enjoy what you do. Amen? Okay, Miss Tiffany, you're a mother. You, at some point in your life, were a wife, but you are a working mother. You have not only, you have a couple professions, and then you have your own business, so you just busy as a one-armed paper hanger.
Yes, I am. And that's why sometimes I got to drink my own cocktail
Okay.
to make it through. So yes, my son is 5. And it's funny because he asked me this morning as we were on the way here, he said, Mom, do you have a boyfriend? And I said, what you mean? He said, you heard me. Do you have a boyfriend? I was like, well, why are you asking? He said, because you grown. You should have you old enough to have a boyfriend. And so for me,
What was the answer?
I'm still looking.
Right, yeah. Mommy's on the market, right?
You know, that's $70 a week training, trying to come in handy, you know,
Okay.
trying to, yeah.
That's
But no, still looking. But no, for me raising him, I'm looking at, I don't read the books. And I tell anybody, ain't no book will tell you how to raise your child. You know, they can't. But we do look at how we was raised and how our mothers and grandmothers raised us. So I look at my mom. My mom was a great mom, but she didn't do everything right, Lord Jesus. So I look at my mom like, I can't be like you in this area. I can't be like you in this area. But there were some things now that I'm have my son, I see why she said what she said, or I see why she did what she did. So now I'm having to replay certain things in my head because I'm sounding more and more like my mom as I'm raising my son. So I'm saying that to say is, don't be so hard on yourself if you don't get it right, because there is no playbook to raising kids. And if you have multiple kids, they all different. They are all different. So I got one. And I said, Lord, you must have knew this may be my only one, because you put about 5, 6 kids in this one little boy. So for me, I'm just trying to take it day by day, one day at a time, and not be so hard on myself, but also to forgive my mom for the past of the things I think in the past I said she got wrong, because honestly, she didn't. She did the best she can with the way she was raised.
Tiffany, you said something very important. There is no book to raise children. And you know, how many people have televisions? Everybody got TV? Remember when you took the TV out the box and there was this big old instruction manual? Remember that? I mean, it was in every language. So when we put is this being recorded? Is it being recorded? It's on Facebook? Oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. But when I was reading the instructions for my phone in Mandarin Chinese, 40 other languages, I read it in French, Cantonese, Mandarin, Spanish, German, Korean, Vietnamese. It had all of these languages and all of this verbiage. It was this thick about a television. When I had my babies and brought them home from the hospital, I got nothing. If I broke my TV, tore it up, I could take it back to the store and get a new one if I had my receipt. But if you tear up and break your kid, there's nowhere you can take them. Your children are damaged. And at best, at worst, if you break your children, you're going to jail. Or they're going to go live, with a white family and never get a good haircut ever again. Ever. Stephanie, you know. So I'm just saying. But she said something very important. When you have multiple children, do you know you can traumatize and damage your children by trying to treat your children the same? Never compare. Oh, I wish you'd be more like your brother. Oh, well, your brother, he did. Oh, your sister is so smart. I don't know what happened to the rest of y'all. Don't do that. It traumatizes your children. You act just like your daddy. You ain't no good. He ain't no good. You ain't never going to be about nothing. That is a traumatizing statement. And so when we have multiple children, we need to treat our multiple children just like we only had one. I have 3 children. They don't look alike. They don't behave alike. They love each other. They get along famously well. They love us. They like us. We spend time together, but we deal with each one of them differently. You have to. I don't want to traumatize my children. I didn't do everything right. Matter of fact, they could have been in foster care a couple times. Hello? I left a 2-week-old infant in the house when we had an emergency and the house filled with smoke, and I left the baby inside. My husband said, "Where's Jared?" Oh my God, we did just have a baby. Some people shouldn't be trusted with children or scissors. Okay, it was bad, y'all. I'm telling you what, I was so young, I didn't know what I didn't know. Stephanie, you work. You said you have 2 young children. How old are your children?
I do. I have a 5 and an 8-year-old. Can you all hear me?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. I'll talk loud.
Okay.
I have a 5 and an 8-year-old. My daughter's getting ready to turn 9, so she thinks she's very grown, and she is very grown. You hear me?
Yeah.
Better. Okay, better. One of the biggest things that I would say is, which has been a common theme throughout, I think, our entire day together, is self-care, right? So for me, the self-care piece, because I'm not very, very good at taking time for myself by myself. But what I do every day, what I commit to doing every day, is taking a half hour to work out, right? Because it releases those endorphins for me, and it makes me feel better physically. It's good for my mental wellness. It's good for my mental headspace. So I do commit to doing that every day. And then the other thing that I am very adamant about is I don't have social media. You will not find me on social media. I don't have a social media presence because I have body dysmorphia issues, right? So I find myself constantly comparing myself to what other women look like. And that's not good for my mental wellness. It's not good for my headspace. And it doesn't do my children or my family, my husband, any justice, right? Because then it puts me in a negative headspace and I'm exuding all sorts of yuck to them. So that is my biggest recommendation, is really just, finding what it is for you, even if it's 30 minutes of exercise. And if you hate exercising, go walk outside. It's beautiful outside. And it doesn't feel like exercise, right? Call a girlfriend. Have a conversation, call your mom, call somebody that you can confide in and have a nice conversation with.
Did you notice what she didn't say? My children are my whole world. My 9-year-old daughter is my bestie. If you're a grown woman and your best friend is 9, I'm just saying, if you are an adult and your daughter shouldn't be your best friend, because when you treat her like she's grown, she's going to act like she's grown, and then when it comes time to discipline her, you won't be able to. Okay, I told my daughter, there's only one queen in this house, and I'm her. Hello? And you may not see a crown, but it's in here. Make that plain. That's what she did not say. She did not say, I spend all my time with my children. You need to spend time away from your kids sometimes. They don't need to be with you all the time. And Lord knows they don't need to sleep in your bed. Okay, Talea said I got how many minutes? Okay, we're gonna stretch it out. Dating and being single. Aria, you don't have a boyfriend? Aria, is your mother here? You're her grandmother? Oh, did you know she had a boyfriend? You knew, you ain't say nothing. Yeah, okay, uh, okay, boyfriends. Okay then, I see you, Miss Aria. Let's say girls are players too. Okay. Okay. So now that you're dating. Oh, okay. Well, we gonna skip over Miss Aria because we don't want her to self-incriminate. Okay, we just gonna leave that alone. Okay, because we don't want to have her get in no trouble when she get home. How do you date and court and navigate that emotionally? I'll put it this way, it's not the question, but how do you navigate emotionally when you're dating and courting someone? Because you know that if you're not well emotionally, then the young person that you're with becomes your whole world. He's my everything, he completes me, and that's not good. If your boo is your everything, you're headed for trouble. So can somebody, Karis, you're in a relationship, would you care to express that in a way that is comfortable for you?
Yeah, so I will say that something that I've had to learn, especially growing into a woman, figuring out who you are at a certain, like I said, I'm 25, so trying to figure out what kind of woman I am, can honestly be very dangerous when you're dating, because if you engage with the wrong guy, it can throw your life off course, unfortunately. And so when you're trying to figure out who you are, you don't want to just entertain anything. And unfortunately, I had to learn that the hard way. And so now that I am in a healthy relationship, that's the hardest part. Like, okay, I am my own person. I am Karis Shanklin. I was Karis Shanklin before I met you. I will be Karis Shanklin if this does not work. And so I think the hardest part is standing 10 toes on that. Like, I am my own person. Like, and I'm in a long distance relationship, and so it's especially difficult because you want to be around your significant other. You want to be around them. You want to hang out with them. You want to have the normal, timeline of a relationship. And so I think the Lord actually did it on purpose because, when you're used to being around somebody for a long time, you don't really know who you are. And so now that I'm in a healthy, long distance relationship, I have to know who I am without him being in my space. And so I think navigating emotionally is it's being comfortable in who you are, independent of somebody else. Loving who you are, but also it's nice to have somebody to go through life with you. But I think the question is actually how to navigate it emotionally. Just being confident in who you are before you decide to bring somebody else along. That's what I say.
Amen. She don't know I was praying like a mad woman. Okay, so this is a question for all the panelists since I've been told that we only have a couple of minutes left. Are there any closing comments or advice that you would give anyone based on your personal experience, based on what you've endured, based on, you said the issue about body dysmorphia, that's a very transparent moment, but it's something that we've all dealt with, especially when the models are not who we are. So is there anybody who has any comments at all?
I would go back to saying know yourself, self-care, definitely self-care. I also appreciate your transparency. I'm going to say that in terms of medication and understanding who you are, helping to take the stigma away from it. I take my medication every day, and I feel better because of it. So,
I will add to that, not only know who you are, know what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, you can't express it to someone else when you come in contact with them, which now may lead to some other type of hurt or pain. So sit down, get your pen, your paper, and write your top 5 to really know what you want out of life and out of somebody else.
So, Tiffany, you would say in a nutshell, to, if I'm interpreting you correctly, steak-em is not steak.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Just
Exactly.
want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, is there anybody else who wanted to add? Aria, do you want to add anything, being that the seasoned woman you are? She is a wellspring of wisdom. Aria, what you doing later? Can you come over? Like, I needed her when I was 13, 23, 33, 43. Okay. So now that we are finished with the panel, I would really like to thank the panel for being transparent and honest, for sharing out of their experience, for giving honest answers. One thing I noticed about them is that they have not all done it correctly all the time. But what I gathered is that they are still works in progress, willing to receive information and counsel, and then also equipped because of it to give information and counsel. So can we give them, as they leave the stage, a round of applause? And now we have our fearless leader, Miss Ada Jefferson, and her trusty, never rusty, always smoking, never joking assistant, Kia.
Thank you, Pastor Ingrid. Give these ladies a round of applause one more time. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, we're going to finish the last 2 raffles, and then we're going to invite all the ladies to come through those doors over there where we have plenty of desserts and mocktails from Tiffany Harvey. Okay, so one last thing, be on the lookout for our paint night. That's coming August 19th, so stay tuned. If you have not already filled out the information over there and left your email, please do so that way we can stay connected and send you the information and the details to come, okay? Yes, we also have a selfie station back there too. It's really, really cute. So you guys can go ahead and enjoy, mingle, mix. Yep, there you go. All right, I'm not looking. All right, so 5, 6, 6, 3, 1, 3. Woo, we got a winner back there. All right, come on up and get your bag, ma'am. You could just pick any.
Come on, Arda.
All right.
Get my number.
And the last raffle of the event, 5663111. All right, Miss Ashley won. All right, so ladies, feel free to go back there, take plenty of selfies, pictures. We have mocktails, like I said, and plenty of dessert. So go ahead, mix and mingle, and have a great time. Thank you for coming. Thank you.